Welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast, a show for artists, creators, creative entrepreneurs to have heartfelt conversations about living a creative life and a career. As you go into this show, hear your favorite creators talk about money, mindset, business, creativity, and everything else that goes behind into making a life that we all adore as an artist. Hear the messy and the wonderful side of being a creative. I am your host, Charka Arora, an artist, creator, and founder of Arts to Hearts project. Thank you for joining me here. Let's jump right in. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast, season 2. I'm your host, Charka Arora. I can't even wait to tell you who I have with me today. I've literally jumped onto this, but I'm so excited for today's episode because I have one of my favorite women artists from all around the world here right next to me on my screen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I truly am so excited to be, recording this interview. Welcome to the podcast, Ritika. I have Ritika Merchant, the Ritika Merchant from India and the world, both actually. Welcome to the podcast, Ritika.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. That was so sweet. That's probably one of the nicest introductions ever. I'm really looking forward to this.
I have, a lot of people who know me. You have no idea how much I'm looking forward to this. And, a lot of people who know me or hear this podcast have mentioned your name 100 times on the podcast. So many
Oh,
guests who've come and from
yeah.
all corners of the world. Yeah. So there's this common question that you'll know in the rapid fire. And
Mhm.
believe me, your name has been there so many
Oh,
times.
thank
So
you. That's
it's
so kind.
absolute honor.
Oh, I'm very excited about this. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay. Just for the sake, for everyone who's joining us, would you want to
Mhm.
introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a visual artist. I was born in Bombay, and now I divide my time between Bombay, Mumbai, and Barcelona. And I primarily work on paper, so it's mostly works on paper. I'm very inspired by mythology. More recently, I've kind of been quite inspired by science fiction, but I like my work is very detailed
Wow.
narrative. I mostly work with watercolors, ink, gouache, and yeah, I mean that's sort of the really compressed synopsis sort of my practice.
Ritika, that's quite a modest introduction. Thank you so much. But let me also read out something that I'd already prepared for you, but I didn't.
Okay.
So, Ritika, like mentioned, is a visual artist from India, but she has way more into her bucket than she has just introduced herself. Ritika has, of course, a Wales from Mumbai and currently works from Barcelona. She's collaborated with Chloe, a French
Mhm,
fashion house we all love and adore. She's
mhm.
also awarded the Vogue India Young Achiever of the Year award at the Women of the Year Awards 2018. She was also named one of Vogue magazine's Vogue World 100 Creative Voices. She's also the winner of Sovereign Asian Art Prize 2021, Women's Art Prize, Suede, Liebfrex, in Paris. Her work is all over the world. Name it, any
Oh,
publication, Huffington Post, Elle, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, The Hindu, Indian,
you're making
Hyperallergic,
me blush a
you
little
name it, and
bit.
she's on it. You should be. You should be. You
Oh,
are
thank you.
all over the place. And what really excites me to see a fellow Indian woman
Mm,
on a global platform and at a place like this, it truly is
yeah,
admirable. I think it sets the bar so high for all of us
thank
and
you.
also helps, it inspires, if you're there, I know so many, like it inspires me. I'm sure it inspires so many other women for what's possible for them.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, it is nice. I understand the idea of seeing representation and how that feels, and I'm just so happy that I don't know. It's it's inspiring. It's so funny because I guess I'm in my studio and I do my thing, and then especially when you're reading out all of these things, it does feel surreal because I do know it is me, but I guess I don't know. I guess I just don't internalize it that much. It's strange.
That's true. I think that's also because of the nature of the work that we do. I
Hmm.
think no matter what we have, wherever your work's going, at the end of the day, it's you, your studio,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm,
you're mostly like a lot of art, like a lot of us spend a lot more time alone in our
yeah,
isolation in our studios, and all of this stop mattering at some point. And I think that's a great thing, and that shows your humility and your
yeah.
connection with your own work as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the validation is always nice, when your work is recognized. It always feels really, really good. But for me, I guess my practice is like what I'm with all the time. So it almost feels like two separate parts of me, I guess.
How? Like,
I guess, as you said, because I think we're in our studio so much of the time, and we're alone. And I guess I spend so much of my time actually making art. So I guess when these career milestones happen, I enjoy it in the moment, and it is really, really nice. But
yeah.
I guess it's just not something I think about on a daily basis.
Again, like you said, it's a moment that you enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm super grateful for all of it.
Ritika, you've had massive success in a lot of things, and I'm sure that you have way more, like a long, long way. But did you think when I have just, I'm throwing out this question in the beginning only because did you think you're going to reach here when you thought of being an artist or you started your journey?
Well, no, obviously, I don't think any artist goes into thinking that. I think the goal is always to be able to sustain yourself from your work and sort of have this fulfilling practice and be able to exhibit your work. But starting out, it all really feels so abstract and it feels so far away that I don't think I was able to conceptualize it. Especially at the beginning and especially just after I graduated from university, like I couldn't envision it. But as I started working and things slowly started coming together, I sort of started being able to see that maybe this is something that I would be able to do full time. Um, but obviously, I mean, no, I could have never like pictured the thing coming up with Chloe or, all of those kinds of things were completely out of the blue. They were like not within the realm of what I guess had expected.
Imagine. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so surprising because a lot of us we don't imagine how a career is going to pan out, but we all,
Hmm.
like I say, like taking living a creative life and a career is like going into the dark every time. You keep going
Hmm.
even when you don't know, where this is going to go, but just your
Hmm.
instinct is what leads you so many times.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. It's your instinct, and also I think just having this need to create and having this need to make. I think I would have always been an artist in some capacity, um, and I think that is something that I think drives most artists. Like you kind of have to. It's almost a compulsion. You have to do it.
Have to.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. You're right. You're very right. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. Can you talk a little bit about who you were as a kid? I know your work has a huge influence of you growing up in India, your mythology, like, how
Mhm.
you also, I feel like your work amalgamates your Indian experience and your global experience.
Mhm.
But I want to know who Ritika was as a young child and your influences. What brought you here today?
Mm. So I was like quite a quiet, quite shy little child, but I've always liked art. I was always drawing and coloring, and like my parents were always encouraged it. They would take me to museums when I was a child, and art galleries and things like that. So I grew up in a household where like there was quite a lot of importance based on like there was quite a lot of importance about the arts, and we were exposed to it a lot, and. Uh, so it wasn't, I mean, I don't think anyone was that surprised when I said I actually wanted to be an artist. um, so that and
Wow.
yeah, I mean, both my parents are doctors, though they're not artists, but I mean, I mean, they still are very interested in art. They love films, and they love a lot of things that are creative. And so it was always sort of part of the conversation growing up. And I've always loved things like illustrated books. It's also growing up in India, like in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have a lot of TV, but at one point, like we did, like we got all of like the channels from like abroad.
Yeah.
And I remember
Yeah.
loving to watch things like music videos because I don't know, I always feel like the 80s and the 90s were like, they had really interesting music videos, and it really felt like it was like a world that you were like kind of stepping into. so I remember watching a lot of those and like being
Yeah.
quite interested in like sort of that sort of visual storytelling aspect. Again, I loved illustrated books. I've always been interested in like how people tell stories, even as a child, even though obviously I wasn't intellectualizing it that way, but it's always been something that I was drawn to, you know. Yeah, and then I did art in high school as like my sixth subject, like an elective subject. And at that point, I mean, I think by the time I was like 15 or 16, kind of knew that like I wanted to definitely do something creative. I wasn't sure about fine art because,
Wow.
again, like you don't have that many examples of people who are artists. And I remember at the beginning, I was
Exactly.
like, maybe I'll do something like graphic design or like interior design, because there were examples of that around me, right? Like, I did an internship with
Yeah.
Pavitra Rajaram, who she was
Oh,
working at
wow.
Good Earth at the time, and I remember like at 15 or 16, I did a little internship with her, and she was like a huge, you know, like
Really?
this. Yeah, and I did. I was like her first intern. She always says that, and yeah, so she was like a. It was interesting to
I think
actually
I
like
caught
be
you
around.
live with her.
Yeah, I did a live with her. I think last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so she was a
Yeah.
great example of someone who was like a creative woman, and but essentially those were the examples I had: people who were in design or female architects or female interior designers. So I don't know, like I guess being just a painter or an artist wasn't so fully on my radar.
Oh,
But
wow.
then obviously
So
as I
on,
started doing,
so on point.
yeah, doing, I know, and as I started doing art in high school a little bit more and more, and then I learned that you could actually go to university or college for fine arts. Um, Something definitely just clicked, and I was like, oh, I definitely need to just be doing that. Like you can actually go and study just like painting and drawing and sculpture. Um, so yeah, so I mean, then that's sort of where that kind of started,
Yeah.
and I had to obviously start building a portfolio to apply to university and things like that. So I was always quite clued into like wanting to be an artist and sort of having to prepare for that, I guess, in high school, because I mean that's just the way it is these days. Yeah, and then I
Yeah,
went
it
to
is.
Parsons. I got into Parsons. I went to Parsons, and I spent 4 years there, and it was amazing. I mean, art
Wow.
school is kind of bonkers, but it is amazing, and I feel like I learned a lot. And I like Parsons a lot because it's not a trade school, so like a lot of the way you learn
Yeah.
is sort of how to think artistically and how to conceptualize things rather than having the perfect painting. Or I mean, you do learn a little bit of like obviously color theory and certain techniques. And especially sculptural techniques and things like that. But a lot of it is about sort of more how to think as an artist. And um, I really like that. I mean, looking back, it's like probably one of the few times as an artist art school. I'm referring to art school where you
Wow.
can truly just be wild and experiment and kind of do whatever you want. Um, which, yeah,
Amazing.
which was kind of amazing. Yeah, and so that's sort of my early
That's
journey. That's sort of how I began.
Wow, that's so amazing. And you said quite a few things that have literally like the first thing I want to talk about is, how rightly you've put this together because as Indians, you were still in Mumbai and I'm so glad to hear that I think Mumbai is a metro city in India. It's quite exposed, and it's also one of the most
Yeah,
like creative cities because it has
yeah,
Bollywood. It has so many creative professions before, like
yeah.
even the whole social media age or like the internet came in. Because that's where the whole creative world was. If we were not
Mhm.
connected via the internet.
Yeah.
I grew up in Agra and I was always creative, but I never was exposed. I came from a business class family. Art
Mm.
was far away from where I
Yeah,
came. And
yeah.
did you? I'm now that you're saying, I'm sure that your parents also recognized the talent in you while you were young, because a lot of people in India still don't understand. Like I know while I was growing up, I thought everyone was creative, or like, oh, this is just a
Yeah,
hobby, or like, you can
yeah.
just painting is not a career. This can I never knew a painting could be a career.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, they are super open minded and they always were encouraging, and they've always, I mean, they're super supportive even to this day. And I feel really lucky because yeah, for me, it was always an option to be able to do it. It did also help that there weren't directly like sort of painters in my family, but I have an aunt who's a writer, and there are creative people in the family. So it wasn't that strange that that I might want to do something like this. But I do know what you mean. I mean, overarchingly, like as a society, especially at that time, um, there weren't that many examples. And I think also the idea of how you would make a living is always a question I think that most creative children are
Oh,
asked
wow.
at some point in their
Yes.
lives. Yeah.
That's it's so amusing to hear this from you because a lot of this is such a common question and it's still a struggle for a lot of us. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, we still are striving how to become
Hmm.
more independent and make a living out of this. And I think it's even more difficult in countries like India where.
Yeah.
The disposable income is still developing and the exposure to
Hmm.
arts and like how art is still considered to be only in the aristocratic like it's
Hmm.
still penetrating deep into the markets and everywhere. How when you decided to pursue arts, did you think about how would you pan this out, like make a living out of this? Like you are here today, but I'm sure when you started it must
Yeah.
have looked very different.
Yeah, so I was definitely still figuring things out and I was trying to be full time. I was quite lucky for multiple reasons. One is straight after graduating from college, I went to an artist residency in Portugal. And then soon after that, like in Lisbon, I met my now husband and we've sort of been together ever since. And I ended up sort of staying on in Portugal, and then I was in Belgium with him for a little bit, and then we've been in Barcelona for a little bit. So, I mean, having him there also to like kind of do things like share rent and stuff like that really did
Yeah.
help, you know.
Yes.
And the way I kind of like worked to be self-sufficient and be able to focus completely on my art was I tried to keep the costs in my life really low.
Really.
So for a long time, we lived in like a tiny studio apartment. I remember when I lived in Lisbon for a year, I had a tiny room that did not have a window
Oh my
for a little
God.
bit. But it was like these interconnected rooms. So like my roommate would keep her like middle door open and she had a
Yeah.
window. But it was like 150 euros a month, which I mean, it's unheard of now. I don't think. I mean,
Yeah.
the rent has gone up in Portugal now. But anyway, at that point, it was 150 euros a month. And I worked part time at this hostel, cooking these dinners. So they had this thing where like you could come in and like you could cook dinners and like people would sign up for them and like you could like plan a menu and you could cook it. And the people would pay you. So you would buy all the groceries and do all of that, and then you'd cook the dinner, and then however many people signed up would like pay you for the dinner. And somehow between that, and then my parents would help me a little bit. They give me a few €100 like each month. Again, I was like 22 years old,
Yeah.
so they were really supportive, and like I feel very lucky that I had parents who could also help me out a
Good.
little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't give me some huge, massive allowance, but they helped me kind of just get through.
True. Yeah. It helped you sail the boat.
Yeah, help me sort of make ends sort of meet. But again, I was quite lucky because soon after that, I had
I'm sure
my
you were
first
not
show.
lucky. I'm sure you worked way harder than luck.
No, the hard work is there, but again, having family support and being able to do that, like I know that not everyone has that. Some people maybe don't have parents who can maybe give
Yeah,
them
that's true.
give
Yeah.
them a little bit each month to kind of make ends meet, and therefore maybe have to take a job that takes up more of their time, which in turn would like hamper their ability to, I don't know, devote themselves entirely to their artist practice. So there are so many pieces of the
Yeah.
puzzle I feel like that
That's
help
right.
you kind of, and like the set of circumstances you're born into, or like the kind of family support that you have, and like you just can't discount that. So
Yeah, that's
that's
true.
kind of how I started. And then even something like for my first show, like I could not afford to get my work framed. So like my parents helped me do that,
Oh, wow.
which is,
It's so
again,
surprising to hear all of this from you because, like just before the recording, we were speaking, and
yeah,
you come with this perception because the beautiful magazine covers, the success, the sold out shows, the beautiful,
yeah.
gorgeous art, and all of that takes up so much space in someone,
Mm,
especially a receiver's mind.
yeah, yeah,
And all of these, and that is why I love this podcast so much and what I do
yeah, yeah,
because this is what makes an artist. Like,
Yeah.
it's, of course, that is an outcome, but
Yeah.
what goes behind that, who Ritika is, and what
Yeah.
actually went into that is
Yeah.
so much more. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it takes a lot. It does take support and it does take help. And I said, I mean, I got into a relationship. That was a completely by chance thing. I have to meet someone. But again, having your rent cut in half really helps when you're an artist, and that matters because like
Yes.
it's not a profession where you earn a lot. So
Yeah.
just stuff like that. Sometimes things just fall into place in a certain way, and like it will impact the way you make work, or you can't discount essentially all of these influences and all of these things in your life. So basically, yeah, that's how I started. And then I had my first show, which thank God, and
This
very
was
like kind
when?
of, this would have been in 20, let's say I graduated in 2008. I think my first show was 2010 or 12. I would have to
Okay.
look, but yeah, so anyway, had my first show at Art and Soul, Gallery Art and Soul in Mumbai. And
Yeah.
I remember also another thing is I remember thinking, okay, like I should reach out to galleries. So how do you reach out to
How
galleries?
do you reach out?
I cold emailed like every gallery. Like no,
So
not
you
every
had zero,
gallery.
like you had no contacts. You knew nobody. Nobody by then knew about your work or something.
No, no one knew about my
Because
work. Definitely not.
today you have representations all over the world. Your work is
Yeah,
traveling all over the world. So like it's a long way from not, like, from nowhere to
yeah. I
this.
mean, I had a friend who was like, these are the galleries you should like look at. Like he worked at, I think at the time he worked at Saffron Art,
Oh,
and
okay.
he was like, look, get in touch with these galleries and maybe they would be good fits and try out this stuff. And Tarana, who runs Art and Soul, like I do know her a little bit just because her daughter went to the same school as me, so she would have known who I am. But she didn't know I was an artist. And I mean, when I reached out to her, like I don't think she had any idea that I had been like making art and doing all of that stuff. But she was like a kind of she wasn't like a total complete, like I've never seen this person in my life, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Anyways, so she agreed to give me a show, and yeah,
This was
thankfully
your
it
first solo show.
first solo show. And thankfully it went like it was good, and like quite a lot of the work sold, and that kind of gave me enough savings. Again, remember that I'm
Yeah.
living on like basically no money each month. Like I really kept my costs extremely low. So anyway, that gave me enough to kind of
But
sustain me for
where
like
were you at
some
this
more months.
point? Where were you living at this point?
I think at this point I had, so my husband, again, we were very young when we met. So he was finishing up his postgraduate. So I had gone to Belgium to be with him while he finished his
Okay.
master's. And so
Okay.
I think I was there when all of this was happening. Yeah, and then now I can't remember. I need to look this up so I don't give you the wrong timeline. I can't remember which show it was at, whether it was the first show or the second show. Because I did two shows, I think, at Art and Soul, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I did two shows. So the first show was actually in 2011. So in 2011, I had the show at Art and Soul, and then it went like really well. And then in 2013, I had a second show with them.
And what happened in
And
between these years? How were you doing in between these years?
so the same way, I basically lived off the savings from the first show. My parents helped me out a tiny bit. I continued the job. No, that was it actually. I wasn't in Lisbon, so I didn't have that job at the hostel. So I basically just lived off savings, and my parents helped me out a little bit. And my rent was 150 euros basically. So that's what I did. But I just made work nonstop as much as I could. And then at my second show, Hannah came, who runs Stark now. Hannah came to the show, and she was like, "Oh, like I'm opening up a gallery." Now Hannah and I had gone to the same school as well. Hannah's a couple of
Okay.
years younger than me, so we were not really friends in school, but obviously knew of each other. But hadn't stayed. Obviously, I mean, we weren't really friends in school, so we weren't really in touch after that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was years later when I saw her, and she was like, "Oh well, I'm." At this point, she was kind of starting Thark, or I don't think Thark had opened yet, and she was, I guess, looking for new artists and things like that. And she came to the opening, I remember, and we were just like, "Hi." We had just a little conversation, and then soon after that, we just started working together. And then since then, I mean, that's sort of just been it.
Wow. And
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm.
You were all over, like you were traveling on a shoestring all over the world because
Yeah.
first you were in Parsons, then you went with
Mm.
your husband, you were in Lisbon, Belgium.
Yeah.
Mm, you have, in spite of being all over the world, you've been able
Mm.
to have a strong foot in India. You've,
Yeah.
like you
Always.
said, your first
Yeah.
solo show was in India.
Yeah.
Was it like something intentional? Also, I don't know what your, and I really want to hear your experience.
Mm.
And this could be my perception, but again, only I can speak for myself. Like my experience in India has always been like, I felt like it was very hard to break into,
Mm.
the pre-existing art ecosystem,
Yeah.
and again, the reaching out um, and why I want to specifically ask this because your work is also like it's not the traditional Indian work that you
No.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how was that? Because you've literally redefined that for a lot of us.
Yeah. I think one thing is I think being from Bombay, and again, just as I said, Hannah and I went to the same school. Tarana's daughter went to the same school. So uh, weirdly, I was kind of a little bit part of that ecosystem in the sense of
Yeah,
like I didn't personally know these people, but like maybe just
yeah,
being from the same kind of
same.
area, and I think that helped for sure in
Yeah,
India. Um, the second thing is it's not like I didn't try here. Like
yeah,
I definitely sent out emails and didn't get responses. Um, and it just so happened that Art and Soul did respond, and then it so
yeah,
happened that Henna did end up coming to that opening. So a lot of it started there by virtue of the fact that people responded there to the work.
yeah,
And in many ways, it's probably because I'm from there, like
yeah,
knew a few people, sort of through people, and
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that does help. And like as shitty as it is to say, I think like obviously like knowing a friend of a friend of a friend, it just does help you. I
absolutely.
wasn't, I guess, as unknown to
Yeah, as
like,
someone who's coming from all over, like
yeah, it's
freshly
way,
from some
way
other
harder.
city. Yeah.
Totally
Do you
harder,
think do you think you coming from Parson was also something that really interested people at that point? Because the Indian mindset a lot of times.
Yeah, probably. But that being said, there are like amazing artists that come out of JJ. So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know. And Baroda, like I mean,
Yeah,
sure, but I mean, I don't know how much that. Of course, it helps, but
yeah,
again, there's really like exceptional artists just in the country, and I will say in the art world, I don't think it matters that much where you got your education. I think
come
the work
from.
and the
Yeah.
practice, yeah, I think the work and the practice speaks much more.
And when you entered and you were going through these art galleries, your work is very different.
Hmm.
Today, it's become a benchmark for a lot of people to know that they can place themselves, in a visual work like that.
Hmm.
Um, when I into the art, I heard really absurd things that we've also spoken about on the podcast. Like, I still remember. I don't want to I wouldn't name it, but I've seen these apprehension. Like people, a lot of times, still there are a few people I know who wouldn't call me like an artist. They'll call me a designer because I didn't come from an art school, or they would call like, okay, this is illustration, this is not art. Or
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's a
not,
big one.
not this is not. I'm sure it's not every bit, but I've seen this
Yeah.
so much like okay, oh, there's this special definition of what fine art is. I still don't know,
Hmm.
but I've seen this segmentation, or like, oh, because they are, I think, they're habitual to a certain image of what an artist looks like,
Hmm.
works like, the work should look like something, or
Yeah.
your work was a fresh take into all of these perspectives. You were a woman,
Hmm.
which I absolutely love. Your work is so, it's so edgy. It is Indian. I mean, in our roots,
Hmm.
anyone who's Indian would relate. Like we
Recognize that.
can, yeah, the
Yeah.
vibrancy of colors, the elements, but it's
Yeah.
modern. It's edgy. It's also very contemporary.
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah.
I absolutely, I this year my goal is to have one to become urgent
Oh.
wherever little wall I can
Oh my
have.
God. Thank you.
So, what was how when you started getting into it? What was your take when you sent your work out there? And did you feel like you had struggled with that? Like your experience and all?
Well, I mean, as I told you, a lot of people just didn't respond to my emails. But I mean, a lot of people still don't respond to my emails, let's be honest. Like, I mean, we all still have to like apply for things or do things and you get zero answer, and that's just life. I think for me, a lot of like, especially early on in my career, people did refer to my work as illustrative and decorative, but I don't find those
Oh
negative
yeah,
things. So I never really like took it. I was just like, all right. I mean, I'm telling a story of some sort,
yeah,
and I don't know. I guess I just never let that stuff really bother me because I don't know. I liked the work that I was making, and to me, it was important to be doing what I was doing. So I just kind of did
went
it,
with the
you
flow.
know.
Yeah,
I just did it, and I think I was lucky because I got a few opportunities like when I was starting out, and it
yeah,
gave me that like little validation that I guess I needed to like keep going.
yeah.
And then also just meeting Henna so early on in my career is has been just amazing. You know, like I feel
I
like I mean
admire that.
we've been together since the beginning of Tarek, and
Yeah,
we've sort of grown together in so many ways. You know, I feel like at the beginning we were probably both like relatively clueless about things, and the
fearless.
learning curve has
Yeah,
been steep.
yeah,
And now, I mean, yeah, we work very well
yeah.
together. And I mean, through then obviously through that, and then I met Adeline, who I work with in Paris after everything that happened with Chloe, and I've been lucky also to have a lot of like amazing people now who I work with who
Yeah,
also like help me with my work, you know, help me
yeah.
kind of get the work out there. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about them, honestly. And I know, and I can't say enough, it's enough how much it means to me to sort of have that support because it is really hard to do it alone, you know.
Absolutely.
And the thing that bums me up the most is that like there are lots of amazing artists and there's just not enough galleries, you know. I need people
Yeah,
need to open more galleries because also for like gallerists, there's only so many artists they can represent. There's only
I
so many artists they
represent.
can do that with to also give each artist that they work with enough time and attention because you can't have 100 artists ultimately. Like you have to
Yeah,
cut it off at some point and have a certain number. So we really just need a lot more galleries because it's I don't
yeah,
think like the art world seems closed because it feels like there's a limited number of spaces, and I think it's because
yeah.
there's a limited number of galleries. I don't think like I do think we just need a lot more galleries,
Yeah,
honestly.
absolutely. And I think what's really changed today and what's worked a lot in favor of artists is that um, I I mean a lot of artists it's it's very important to have a stable income for people like who
Yeah.
have to pay their own bills, who have to pay their
Mhm.
rents, or who may
Yeah.
have certain responsibilities that we may not have. And like us, like as much the top leading galleries may provide a sustainable income. Not all can do that. And I
No.
think the good thing is social media has democratized
Yes,
a
it has.
lot. Yeah. And I think just the sheer, like I have seen in the past 2 years in between the pandemic, a lot of people have become full time artists. Like
Mm.
they've taken that in charge and that, they know. And I think just the sheer thought, like you said, just keeping focus on that, this compulsive urge to keep making
Yeah.
art
Yeah.
and then do it whichever way suits you. If we can do via galleries, exhibits, art fairs, so social media,
Yeah,
as long as
you
it
can do it
helps
your own
you.
way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the other thing is working with a gallery doesn't necessarily guarantee you a stream of income.
yeah,
It's not
that's true.
guaranteed that your work is going to sell. So it's like I don't think that can also be the end all of everything of anyone. Like shows don't do well, collectors are not interested in certain work. You're not guaranteed anything. So
Yes,
it's helpful to have and it's great, but there is also something to be said for doing things by yourself or like doing it, yeah, especially with social media or selling stuff by yourself. It's not, I don't think there's one specific way to
way.
be an artist. And also, a lot of artists I know do have other jobs. So many artists I know teach and teach also because they love it. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. As long as like you have enough time to um, give, the time to do your work, enough time that you need,
Yeah,
which is completely different for everyone. Some people only need
everyone.
a few hours a day, some people need the entire day. So some people are able to and like having another job. It takes them out of their
Yeah,
studios, it puts them in a community. I mean, so many artists I know love teaching because it gets you out of the
yeah,
studio. You're with students, you're doing stuff. So I mean, it was never for me because I need a lot of time and I like a lot of time, but there's completely different models and ways to be an artist, and it's really interesting also to see how people navigate it,
yeah.
all the different things people do.
Absolutely. And you know what I really love about when I discovered, I still remember, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. I was just sitting and someone, I remember this piece I was working on, and I was working in this co-work space in India, and someone came to me and they were like, oh, they figured if I was an artist, and they, do you know this girl called Ritika Merchant? And at that point, I
Oh,
didn't know about you. And she was like, I really think you'll really like her. And I'm so grateful for that introduction because ever
so
since
funny.
then, yeah, I mean, she was
Yeah.
maybe because we had, I don't know, at that, I love gouache. And I think it was, I don't know when, but I still like gouache is my number one, my favorite medium, no
Yeah.
matter what. I mean,
Yeah.
it's even to like now I started painting gouache on wood panels, and
Hmm.
it's just changed. Like I think it was the first, and I think it's also easier when if the work is illustrative or like
Yeah.
motif driven, and I think it's
Yeah.
just it just feels so much better. But okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about your journey with Tark, which is something I'm also very interested because
Hmm.
you and Tark started together, Hannah. I know um, it's so amazing to see what Tark is doing in India
Yeah.
because they're
Absolutely.
remarkable, and the
Yeah.
roster of the curation. Um, I think adapting and bringing a change in an
Hmm.
industry
Yeah.
as stringent as this is just
Yeah.
a big challenge in its own way. And Tark has absolutely with you, with Sam, with
Sam. Yeah.
I mean
Vishwa.
so many,
So all
yeah,
of the artists,
Vishpa,
actually. Yeah. All
yeah,
of them.
remarkable work.
Yeah.
And I've also seen this approach. Like I've seen your work. Like you've done illustrative books, you've
Hmm.
done like you've done so many different things also,
Yeah.
and have explored and still been able to like build that one visual language.
Hmm.
You also have had like a very strong presence on social media.
Hmm.
It's been, how has your journey since working with Tark have, and then a lot has happened in between been?
Yeah. Well, I think Tarek's success was totally a testament to Henna, and you should get her on this podcast if you can, because she has
Absolutely.
a lot of insight into this. And she's like a young woman who started her own gallery. And so I think she's been on her own journey, which I can't really speak to. But she would be an interesting person to talk to.
Absolutely. I'll
But
have to get you a word through you.
yeah, I'll tell her. Sh For me, actually, it's been very interesting to have a lot of other artists um, kind of doing a similar thing to me. I mean, our works are all very different, but everyone is sustaining their practices in a similar way. Tarek is also very focused on the artist practice. I think that's one of the major things Hannah always
Yeah.
says she looks for, like what the person's practice actually is. And I think that's what she's attracted to in artists. Um, and she does this thing called Artist Weekend once a year, where we
Yeah.
all meet up and there's workshops. And I think that's been really helpful. Like it's actually taught all of
Really?
us a lot of like the logistics of how to be an artist. So just simple things like packing
Oh
work properly,
wow.
like um, archiving work. Like last year, we did a workshop on how to archive work and also how to keep your work safe, like
Yeah.
from things like mold or
Legit.
humidity and things like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, just stuff like real world things that you need. I think it's really nice that as a gallery, she organizes this kind of stuff for us because we can be quite clueless about these kinds of things. And
Yeah.
um, it's super helpful to have that kind of stuff. So I think she's also really fostered this kind of community and like really invested in all of us, by giving us
Yeah.
this knowledge and doing that sort of stuff. And I think that's invaluable. She is really amazing,
Wow.
and you have to talk to her.
I have to. I have to. She's been another name on my list has been Hannah.
Yeah,
I've been loving Tark since its inception, and I
yeah.
think it truly shows. Like if you see artists growing in their own
Hmm.
organic farms,
Yeah,
I think you can make out. I've always been following Sam,
yeah.
um, you, Vishwa, and I oh
Savia?
God,
Savia.
Savya, yeah.
Savia, yeah.
So you can see, like, happy artist means happy. There is someone
Yeah,
who's holding
yeah,
them up, bringing them together
yeah,
with
yeah.
all these opportunities. And it's so nice to
Yeah.
even hear from you because, this is what transparency I spoke to you about. Like, I would assume a lot of, so I have faced all of these struggles that you are speaking about because I felt like I didn't come from an art school. immediately I have a big international community today, and it's been a
Yeah.
game changer for me because now I know if I have a quick question, like, I'm stuck with this, like, even if it's technical, if it's mindset, or like I'll message them and I'll ask them, okay, I
Yeah.
can't figure it out. How do I do this?
Yeah.
So someone will come up and they'll be like, and
Yeah.
how I'm learning. This
Yeah.
podcast, Ask to Heart, is like my own, it's a big
Yeah.
part of my own practice because
Yeah.
it's also hard schooling myself and I'm learning and growing with someone
Mm.
else and every time another way.
But that's
And
amazing that you built that for yourself in a way, you know?
yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, like we
Yeah, you
said,
have
you
to.
have to.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's this compulsive urge to create, and I think I, the sheer isolation sometimes is hard, but also the need for a community is so
Yeah.
transparent for a
Yeah.
creative. The magic it can bring for all of us, like you said,
Yeah.
the community that Turk has for you has uplifted you so much.
Yeah, it has. It definitely has. And I really don't take that for granted because I know that not all artists kind of have that. I
Yeah,
Instagram has helped though make people
bringing
find each
together.
other, bring people together and finding this community. And I mean people reach out and I would feel comfortable also reaching out to someone if I needed to know something.
Question.
I definitely have reached out to other artists, for stuff and
I've reached
people
out
reach
to you
out
so
to me.
many times. Do you remember?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I've
But
been
yeah,
the stalker kind of a thing. Like
no, and
I
I
would
think
be.
that's the point of social media. You know what I mean? Like it is to sort
Yeah,
of make these kinds of connections and reach out to people. So I think that has helped a lot of people find that community as well, which is nice.
yeah, that's true. How do you
Yeah.
think has social media also helped you in your career? I know you have a strong presence, which is
Hmm.
amazing. You reach a lot of audience. You also said like
Yeah.
the segmentation of women and everything. But how has your social media panned out in your creative career?
So I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I don't love it and I don't really share anything personal because I
Yeah,
don't know, always feels really unnatural to me. For me, I just look at it as an extension of my
yeah,
website or like a portfolio or something like that. But obviously, I recognize the value in it, and I do like the community a lot. I've met some
yeah,
and discovered some amazing artists, so I do love that part of it. Um, and obviously, that's kind of how I started working with Chloe because they found my work online
yes,
completely out of
yes.
nowhere.
Oh my God, we have to get
So
to the story.
yeah, so it's like, I mean, I can see how where an image can take you and where yeah, just how someone just stumbling across your work, how it can really change your life. So I always
I
advise
rem-
everyone, have some. I mean, I don't post every day. I don't even post that much. I try to post once a week, but again, if I have nothing to post, I just don't. But
yeah.
I mean, just
Also, your
having
work takes time. Takes
takes
time.
time. Yeah, yeah, it takes time, and also just having a somewhat active social media page, I think helps because I also notice
Yeah,
now, when people are like, "Oh, what do you do?" and then they're like, "Oh, where can we see your work?" And then you can say,
yeah.
"Oh, I have a website," and then they say, "Oh, but do you have Instagram?"
Yes,
That's always the second
yes,
question they want
yes.
to know. Somehow people are much more comfortable just quickly whipping out Instagram and having a quick look at your work. And I also it does help people get a little bit of an insight into what your studio looks like,
Yes,
or it makes them feel more of a connection, I guess, with the work when they also
with
see how it's being made
and with the artist.
and with the artist. But again, because I don't really post so much
Yeah,
personal stuff, I don't know how much of a connection they feel with me personally. I don't know how much people would. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know the people
It's a
know that
process.
much.
I mean, so many times you just post like, from your desk, and
Yeah,
like when I see the
yeah,
post, I'm like, oh, that's what's happening in the studio. Like it
exactly. Yeah,
instantly gives you like a connection. Like okay, like
yeah,
it's also like a reminder. Like you're on my mind. I love
yeah,
your work. But
yeah.
again, when I see you, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what's been happening.
Yeah, and also it's a nice way if you're especially if you're having a show, it's a great
Yeah,
way to remind people to go see it. Now also, especially during COVID, the whole pandemic, there was so much programming on social media. There were lots of
yeah,
panels, like you saw the live that we talked about.
yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, you can't discount it anymore. As I said, as
yeah.
much as it annoys me sometimes, I see that it's useful and it's good, and I enjoy aspects of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I remember we're going to talk about one of the most like fun things, which is
yeah,
your Chloe collaboration. Such a dream
yeah.
project. I remember. I'm going to set this context because I remember somewhere. I've almost read all your articles.
Ah.
So I remember you mentioned this in an article where you said they found you via Pinterest.
I think it was via Pinterest. I don't actually know whether it was Pinterest or Instagram because the way I was told was someone had made like a mood board for the collection and one of my works were on it. Like I remember when I talked to Natasha, I was like, how'd you find my work? And she was like, yeah, your work was on a mood board. And then we were like, who is this artist? And they like looked up my name and they were like, okay, is this person like alive? Like, or like, where do they live? Or like, what? Like, because you don't know, it's just a name. And they're like, oh my God, she's young. We should just send her an email. And they literally cold emailed me. I had to check if the email was real.
What year was this?
It was 2017.
And before we get into this, where were you in your life before Chloe happened?
Where was I in my life? I was living in Barcelona part-time.
Okay.
And I think I had just started working with Tarek. Yeah, I just started working with Tarek because I started working with Tarek in 2015.
Okay.
And oh no, I know exactly where I was in my life. I was preparing for my first solo show with Tarek.
Oh.
In 2017. I just looked at my website to see like what was going on. And actually I remember that because I was like, there was a lot going on because so it was like the spring summer 2018 collection, but that would have been shown in Paris in like I guess October, November, like September, October, Paris Fashion Week in 2017. And then I had my show at Tarek in December 2017. So I was finishing up all the work for that and all of this was going on. So I remember there was a lot going on.
But I'm also interested in like, I'm sure we are going to get into the post Chloe because I'm sure it's brought massive change and impact in your life. Yeah. But as an artist, I just want to know, like, an opportunity as big as this, knocks on your door. We don't really expect it. Like, were you still figuring things out? Were you struggling, or you had figured things out? Like, were you expecting something as big as this to happen? Like,
no, absolutely
things were slowly picking up, or things were very slow? Like, I want to know what was happening.
Things were not super slow. As I said, I had this show with Tarek. I had done a 2-person show with them, I think in like 2015 or 2016.
Yeah.
It went well. And then we had planned this solo show, but it's not like I had any like record of like really good sales or anything like that. So I didn't know how the show was going to go. But I was making all of this work, and then I just got this email completely out of the blue from Chloe. And to be honest, like I almost had a panic attack because like I like
did you believe it was true?
Yeah, well, I had to like double check it. I was like, is this like, who's the email
Another
from?
Scam. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt completely out of the blue. So yeah, I mean, it was stressful, but it's life-changing.
Okay, then what happened next? When they reached out to you?
So then obviously we did that. We went back and forth by email, but fashion moves extremely fast and I do not. So this was very, very overwhelming for me. Like it takes me ages to, I had made very detailed work and like, this was a lot. So, just in I think in like a week after the first email, like I was already on like a Zoom call, or not Zoom, Skype or whatever, with Natasha and like the team. And then it was
it was already closed and done within a week.
Okay, maybe not a week, like 2 weeks though.
Yeah.
It was really fast. Quick. I mean, it was super quick. Like I remember I had a call with her before the contracts were finalized. Like we were still, but I wasn't even sure I was going to do it. Like we still had to work out all the contractual stuff, and that was another anxiety-inducing thing.
Because figuring things out, like how this would turn, like how pricing and like legal.
Yeah, and also like, there's so much legal stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of legal stuff with such big companies, and I mean, I remember I think the contract was like 30 pages, and like I kind of had to go through all that.
But I'm sure you would have support from Henna and
I did. Henna helped me a lot, and my parents like looked over things with me, and I have a lawyer look at things because you're signing away all this stuff.
It's not like
No, it's a lot. So it was extremely stressful, but I mean, again, you can't always be comfortable in your life. Sometimes things will challenge you and stress you out.
And that's how you take the leap also, I think.
That's how you take the leap. But I remember feeling very aware at the time that like, this is a huge leap, and I am feeling extremely stressed because like I've not experienced any of this before, and like I was having to learn in real time really fast.
I have to.
But it was amazing, and thankfully it all worked out, and
And then
I was
like it
able to
was
like,
such a beautiful collection, such a gorgeous. I think
thank
even
you.
till now it's one of the leading collections.
I'm
And
extremely proud of the work that I did with them, and I'm so happy with how beautifully it all came out. Like, I am super proud of it as well, you
did
know.
you go to the show?
I did go to the show, and I
Oh
did not go to the
no.
show because I had a show here. I had a small show here in Barcelona that was opening like the same day, and I'd already
Oh
committed to it, and I just
no.
couldn't do it. But I watched it online, and it was fine.
Oh, no, there are so many more coming your way. I'm sure that you're going to attend more.
Yeah, and
Maybe like a
honestly,
Gucci or
like
something.
yeah, the process of making it and like working at the studios, I mean, that was just so amazing. Ultimately, I could make it to the actual show, but
Yeah.
as I said, I mean,
And
everything came up so fast, like it was impossible to stop, pulling out of things and everything. And like,
but your working process with, I mean, a commission, like a big commission, like a big collaboration like this must have been really challenging because, we have this, as artists, we have the comfort of working at our own speed without any brief, whatever comes to your mind,
hmm
let you
hmm
go. And then
yeah,
when you have someone else commission you with at such a scale,
yeah.
how was your experience with that? I'm sure it must have been a learning curve.
It was, but I will say they did not really give me too big of a brief, which I loved. They were
Wow.
pretty open to like so the way it started was she showed me like some of my own works that she liked. And she was like kind of something along the lines of these works and like the things I really love are hands and eyes, and I love all the botanical elements and things like that. So she was really loose with like the brief and what she wanted. And they also sent me like the patterns for all the dresses so I could kind of visualize
Yeah.
like what would go
How?
on. But they were really well. Natasha was extremely collaborative, which I it's my first time doing something like this, so I didn't really know what to expect. And also, it may have just worked out really well, maybe because we did have that synergy, and she
Yeah.
did like what I did. It could have gone differently if I'd presented her with the works and she was like, "No, I don't like this," but somehow
Yeah.
she did like it, and so it didn't feel like, oh, I have to make so many edits and keep doing this and this and this. Like I remember like taking the 5 works to her on like a roll when I went to Paris, and I was like, these are the works. And I think I sent her sketches before I like started doing them. And then she was
Okay.
like, oh, I like really like them. Can you just like make this bigger and that smaller? It was really just
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, are there any colors that like you like that? Oh, are there any colors you're thinking of for the collection? And she gave me like 10. It was like every color, pretty much. But I mean, I knew what she wanted. Like
Yeah. You figured that
when
out.
I figured that out, and from the works that she chose, and I knew she wanted kind of like slightly more desaturated and that kind of thing. She really liked the blues. And yeah, and then I just like took the works to her, and I remember like we like laid them out on these like tables in like the studio. Then she was just like, "I love them all." I was like, yeah. It was really funny.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
You make it sound so easy. I'm
Weirdly,
sure it
it was.
wasn't.
No, it actually
Really?
was with her. Yes.
You
I mean,
really?
again, I really think it was just a collaboration that worked. I think we got along. I think that she really liked my work, and it was strangely easy, Like I think we liked the same things. I remember even like sitting with the graphic team when we were like laying out the paintings on each pattern, and like we would take them in. We would make these like paper dresses, like paper mock-ups, and then take them in. She would look at them. And she liked a lot of the ideas that like we came up with. So I think that the reason I think it came out so well is because I think we were very much on the same page,
Same thing.
and that, yeah, you can't predict something like that.
Yeah. You have to go with the flow.
You just have to go with the flow, and I guess we just lucked out. Like again, it really was that synergy where I think we just connected on that level.
Well, then how is and how was the life after Chloe? It was. I'm sure it's like, as much as I feel like you don't like it's a big project. Like
Hmm.
it's something that doesn't happen ever so often with like so many people.
Yeah.
And I think the sheer fact that you're a woman from India in the arts is a
Mhm.
massive impact. How has that panned out ever since this collaboration happened?
Yeah.
Did
Well,
this
I think
career feel like? Did you feel like it
yeah.
took like a
Yes,
sky?
it did. It definitely moved the needle. First of all, I think it brought my work to like a completely new audience and like a
Yeah,
much wider audience than I could have ever imagined. And that is invaluable. The fact that
Yeah.
so many more eyes were on the work in a much more international way. And then probably Adeline, my gallerist in Paris, who I love now, and so that changed things in a huge way also. Um, and it gave me financial stability
Yes,
for like the
certainly.
first time in my life, which really is like a young woman is completely life changing and is
Yes.
amazing to have.
Yes.
So yeah, it really did change my life in a huge way.
Also, I think, did it also challenge you in the sense that you imagine yourself as an artist then and today, like the possibility of the
Hmm.
impact of your work and how many translations. Like I think this is maybe just my observation, but I've seen like a lot of people limit themselves, especially in an artist, like when people try to cap you. Like,
Yeah.
you want to be like a gallery artist or you want to like only do paintings or
Hmm.
like stuff like that. But I think for you, a big collaboration as big as Chloe,
Yeah.
and then having like such massive success with that collection broke that. And then like, do you think like it opened your mind to possibilities of where your work could reach into several mediums or like stuff like that?
Definitely. Yeah, it did. I mean, I had never thought of a fashion collaboration, and uh yeah, it did. Like even just seeing like my two-dimensional work in sort of this three-dimensional way in a more sculptural form, like yeah, completely changed my perspective on the work. Yeah, I feel like it changed a lot. It even changed the way I work in so many ways, because
Really?
as you said before, there were never really any deadlines, or I mean, you had like
Yeah.
RA once a
Self-imposed.
show, yeah, and
Yeah.
suddenly having to like create work or like do these things and think about stuff. I didn't think it was something I was capable of, and like it taught me a little bit about working under pressure, which I mean, sometimes you do have to do
Yeah.
realistically,
Yes.
and so it changed that, and I think it also just gave me a confidence in my own visual language. I always felt that it was something that I was like, I don't know if people can relate to this. But then this whole thing and like how much people responded to it, like made me realize that people can relate to it and actually really like it. So I mean, that was super validating as well.
Oh, wow. What does your life and your life in Barcelona, which absolutely, I visited, my last trip with my mom
Hmm.
was in Barcelona. I lost her in the pandemic, and it was
Oh no, I'm so
my
sorry to hear.
no, it's okay. It's one of my most cherished memories, and it's also a place that really opened my mind. Like,
Hmm.
I was like, honestly, I came from a design and tech background, like the design tech startups and everything. And I came like, I have been like you spoke about things like, being on your own. I knew I've been on my own for the last decade. I've paid my
Hmm.
rents, moved away when I was 17. I came from business class, like a very patriarchal, like,
Yeah.
so I was continuously like fighting. Like I had to like make sure I was able to live, but I was always creative and
Yeah.
I knew no other language. So, in India, you're always taught like if you want to be successful,
Yeah.
do this would make more sense. And even though I tried every practical possible way, I knew my heart lied being a creative
Hmm.
truly. So
Hmm.
I remember I was struggling a lot at that point and I went to Barcelona with my mom. It was one of the most, I'm grateful for that time because I had my last trip with her at that time.
Yeah.
But also it was a trip that really opened my mind.
Hmm.
And like I remember this, I can feel the scenes. I love Barcelona so much. Like I saw artists all over the street selling paintings and like, the
Yeah.
the energy is so liberating and so creative in the sense that there's a lot of fluidity in the environment. I also love like how the beach is there and there are
Yeah.
mountains and everything.
Yeah.
How has Barcelona impact? You've been living how long in Barcelona?
10 years.
Oh wow.
10 years, but not full time. And in fact, now coming up from this year on, I'm going to be spending more and more time in India. I mean,
Oh,
we still have our apartment here, but um, I try to divide time as much as I can.
definitely.
And yeah, yeah, I come and go. So I don't live here full time, but I it is really it's a very creative city, and it
Yeah,
is very inspiring. For me, honestly, I like the peace and quiet of life here.
yeah.
I feel like that gives me the space to create. Like, it's
But this
very
is
different.
very
Like,
contrary. This is very contrary to your life in Mumbai because Mumbai is absolutely contrary to this.
I know, but I think that's the thing. It's the duality
Yeah.
of both. Like, I have the chaos there, and then I have the quiet here, and I think that like builds the whole picture.
Amazing. So when you go back in Mumbai, do you make still like do you go back? I can relate to what you're saying right now because I'm also like I'm living in two cities right now.
Yeah,
My work and exposure and everything else is in Delhi because it's the bigger
yeah,
city and everything else. But
yeah.
my studio, like the quietness, the time I can spend to myself, and also I think the luxury of space in itself.
Yes,
Smaller city gives you that.
yeah.
But how do you manage that then? Do you like you make the work in isolation here, and then when you go back in India, it's more about meeting people, or like, or do you still make the work there also?
Yeah, in both places. I basically just need a table to make my work. So I just carry things back and forth. Or I mean, you can get everything everywhere. And
Yeah.
I just make work wherever I am. That's
Wow.
generally how it is. I just, yeah. But I mean, again, usually at my parents' house when I am in India, and I am actually setting up a studio there now in Bombay,
Really?
which is,
This trip?
yeah, this trip.
Oh my God.
So
Wow.
I'm finally taking the step to stop working in an extra bedroom and actually set up a dedicated space. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that.
Oh wow.
And yeah, but essentially I
Amazing.
just make work wherever I am. Like even when I'm in Belgium, sometimes we're there, but I'll make work there. So it's.
So you're also in Belgium? Oh my God. I
I'm not.
didn't.
No, 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 no. I'm not. My husband is Belgian, so sometimes we are
You
there
go
for
there.
periods of time.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. And how is your like day-to-day life now? Like how does being Ritika, like this is the whole introduction that I gave, the Women of the Year,
yeah. Yeah.
artist, the creative voice, the Chloe collaborates, like, you know, but how is your day when you're just you?
Honestly, it's the same. I just wake up every day and I make work. Like that has not changed. Like it's pretty much the same thing. And believe it or not, I pretty much live the same way. Like people are like, "What's wrong with you?" But like I truly just live the same way. I don't know. Like not that much has changed, to be very honest. Like I don't like. I mean, I don't worry too much about like how I'm going to pay rent the next month
Yeah,
anymore. But like my lifestyle and like the way I live is this. I don't live in a studio apartment anymore, but I don't live in like
yeah,
I just live in a
a
normal
must.
house. It's just like I'm pretty much the same. I just have more time to like
How
develop my
much?
work, I guess.
How many hours do you spend? Do you like what is your studio routine like? Do you spend like in a week? How many hours, days? Like how does that work for you?
I've never calculated. Let's see. I saw like I will wake up usually around 6:30, and then I have a very long morning because I'm not a very morning person. So I'll like drink tea and I'll read the news and I'll do all of that. And I do all of that from my bed. And then I'll usually do all my emails and all of that kind of stuff from bed in the morning. And then I usually will come and sit down at my desk, usually at around 9:30 or 10. And then I'll work till lunchtime, maybe around 1. So that's what, like three hours, say. And then I would maybe do about 2 or 3 hours after lunch. So probably about 6 hours a day.
And then that
Four
goes
to six
throughout the
hours a
week,
day. 5 days a week. Yeah, I do try not to work on weekends. Yeah,
weekends.
I would say 6 hours a day. Obviously, depending on what I'm doing, or if sometimes
Yeah,
when you're in a piece and you just can't stop, it will be much longer. Or I'll go back after dinner, or I'll work all evening. So I don't really have set hours that way. But I would
yeah,
say on average, I will work all morning and then mostly all afternoon, and then the evening I'll relax and I'll do stuff that I need to do. But
amazing.
generally about never less than 4, and I don't know, it can go up to 8 hours, go up to 10 hours if it's something I'm really
But
into.
that's how do you like this much of is your husband also into like a creative field or like
Yes,
something
he is
associated? Yes.
he's an industrial designer, so he is creatively inclined.
Oh yes, yes.
He's not an artist, but yeah, so
Yeah.
he gets it, and I mean that's his desk right over there. I mean you can't see, but like he
Oh,
works
I
right
can see
next
it.
to
I
me.
can see it in the mirror.
Yeah, he works right next to me. So
Oh wow, you guys work together.
we work together, yeah. We have
So
very
that's
good
not
noise cancelling
isolation.
headphones. No, but we're not allowed to talk to each other. I mean, I
Quite
set that
strict.
rule.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
I
it's
was
too
about to say that.
distracting. Yeah, I know, it's too distracting. I put headphones in. Um, and then we talk on breaks. But no, we don't.
And when
And
you're working,
he's not allowed to comment on my work while it's happening. That's the other thing.
yeah, that's a big no, because it's just
Yeah, it's a big no.
a big no. But when
Yeah.
you're working, you have your headphones on. Do you listen to music when you're working?
I listen to music. I listen to podcasts. Yeah, I listen to all sorts of things.
So that's your go-to, like your table desk. I always like your signature desk on Instagram has become quite
Yeah, I'm
popular.
always like sitting at my table. Yeah, I mean, I always just need a table. That's the only thing I need. I can't really work on
Easy
the
and
ground.
efficient.
Yeah, and I can't really work on the ground. Somehow I've never been comfortable working like that. It hurts my back, bending over and like,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, I've
That's
always
true.
been like, yeah, and you know how it is with watercolors. You can't work vertically because it all drips down.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
need a
yeah,
flat surface. Yeah,
yeah.
that's how it is.
Well, your approach towards medium has also been very experimental in the sense that, you started working on the embroidery hoops. Then I
Mhm.
love your paper foldings and then
Yeah.
your collaging and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about it? And then we'll rush to, I know it's been a while,
No,
so
no,
we'll
it's
rush to
fine.
the,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've always loved paper. It's a really democratic medium. As I said, I can take it with me everywhere. You can find it everywhere. It's inexpensive. Um, there's so many varieties of it. I don't know. I've always really loved it. And I remember also early on in my career, people were like, "Are you sure you don't want to work with oil? Like, it'll
yeah,
probably go much
oh,
better."
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah,
I want to
I
hear your
definitely got
thoughts.
that.
Yes,
But
really?
it was just never for me. And I was just like, it's just not for me. So no, I will not be making oil paintings.
Oh,
Um,
wow, that's so brave of you to say. I can't say I have been that brave. I juggle with oil like I love gouache. So it's my
yeah,
sweet spot. But
yeah.
this whole thing, like, if I'm not like, I have to get this relationship sorted with oils. But
Yeah,
that's
it
my
is a
question to you.
relationship. It's a relationship, it's a full-on commitment. It's like, I don't know, all the chemicals involved in it. And
Yeah,
it's a completely different skill set. And I do not
yeah.
possess that skill set. Like you really have to know how to work with oils. So I mean
And I
obviously
think
we
with
learn to live with it.
watercolors, I think I don't know what you like, but what I really figured why I have this relationship struggle with oils is like, I love the fluidity when my thoughts, like,
Mhm.
I work very intuitively. So what
Yeah.
comes to my mind. So with watercolor, I get into that flow and there's nothing stopping me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to settle my time and then switch things up and then come back. I can get into
Same.
a flow.
Yeah,
That's
I love
what I
that
really
too.
do.
I like that it dries fast.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you could obviously make that translucency with oil too, but I just like the aesthetic of watercolor. Ultimately, it's an
Yeah.
aesthetic choice. I love how it
Yeah.
looks. The things that I like, like old maps and botanical drawings, all of those were often made with with a water-based medium. And it's just the way the colors are and like what you can get it to look like on paper. That's sort of always what I've been drawn to, and so it just felt very natural. And I don't know, I still find different ways to use it. I still find different ways to use paper. Like when I was in India, in like when the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
everything was
Yeah.
closed and like no one could get
Paper
anything
cut.
anywhere. Yeah, and so then I started doing paper cuts, and so I don't know. I still think there's so many different ways you can just use this one medium.
Yes, that's what I really love about your work because you have, like, how was did speaking about like oils and watercolors, did you receive like responses when you use embroidery hoops, especially with paper? I mean, we are taught
Yeah.
this idea of like sustainability, like like
Mhm.
art, when you sell your art, it's going like for so and so, like you have to make sure that it has to survive certain way, look certain way,
Yeah.
not to be breakable. And but paper and embroidery hook is a delicate combination.
Yeah, it is
Like,
a delicate combination.
and you've taken a lot of like experiments in your work like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what were the responses and how have you dealt with them?
I mean, some people were a little bit skeptical, but then my whole thing is like if you feel like it's too delicate of an artwork for you, or if you don't feel the paper is going to last, then it's not the artwork that you should put in your
Invest
collection,
in.
or it's not the artwork that you should invest in. It's just not for you. Like, not
Yeah,
all artwork is for everyone.
is it?
But and for me, again, I've been lucky enough that there have been enough people who like the work as it is,
Yeah, love
So
the work.
I love the work. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I've never really felt that pressure to have to change because I think the response it's been good in general.
Yeah.
So
But it was edgy. It was out of the box. It was out of that line. So I'm sure
Yeah,
it
the
wasn't.
hoops was something, I guess, a little bit different in the sense
Yeah.
that no, maybe people had done it before. I don't know. I don't think I invented it. I'm sure I didn't. I mean, I
No,
could
no,
be a big person,
absolutely,
but
absolutely. But I think
yeah,
for anyone who reaches something new at mass, like to a bigger audience,
yeah,
I think that's the only difference that makes it.
yeah. But I think a big part of it is also Tarek. I think having a gallery that's willing to educate their collectors and sort of tell them how to conserve the work, or talk them through any doubts they may have also helps. If
Yeah,
someone has some reservations about, I don't know, how am I going to exhibit an embroidery hoop, or what does this entail to like have something like this? But again, I don't know. To be very honest, I never really think about like who's going to buy the work. I always just make the work, and
but
and then we figure it out from there, because I don't know. I have to just do my expression, I guess.
I love that. I love that. Then in between, so I come from a fashion school, so I did Pearl, and then I was in Milan, and then I came back and I did a fashion. Like I was, and I spent like I come from Agra, so Agra
Mhm.
is a big spot for like cultural crafts and like
Yeah.
embroideries and all of that. And I spent a lot of time with my mom. She was a fashion addict. Like she would
Mm.
get like a tailor every day home, and then she would
Yeah.
scourge like thrift, clothes and put together,
Yeah.
and then give it to tailor, like typical Indian thing. So
Mhm.
I always had this like this big box with me for
Mhm.
years. I have carried, and I've lived
Mm.
in teeny tiny apartments
Yeah.
all over in Delhi, and I still carried it with me. I never used it, and I was like, I don't know. I just had emotional attachment to it. I never wanted to let it go. In between the pandemic, I was like, I was just doing my like daily journal, and I was just playing with watercolors, and I was like, okay, maybe I can stick to it. And then one, and then two, and then three, and eventually it got so deep into my work. I remember like one time someone asked me, you know, why are you like adding all of this? Because it doesn't make it, it makes it less fine arty, or like I don't know all of those things. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I don't care, because this is the most joy I have ever experienced in my
Yeah.
life as a creative, and it felt so natural to it. And ever since that, I think there's never a looking back. A lot of someone asked me like, what if something falls off?
Mm.
Of a painting. I'm like, I'm going to give my collector like as much high quality glue I do. What I do is
Yeah.
I test it out over time. But I'm going to
Yeah.
give my collector like a pack of
Yeah.
embroideries and something to
Yeah.
stick. And
Totally.
I can take guarantee if anything falls off, you can send it back to me and I can fix it.
Yeah.
What more?
Well,
I mean,
that's the
I can't
thing.
stop.
No, and that's the thing. Artworks can always be repaired. Even oil paintings over time, I assume if they're like exposed to humidity or like heat, or,
Yeah,
they will crack eventually. You do have to. I mean, oil paintings sure have an extremely long shelf life,
love that.
but I mean, now not everyone is an oil painter, and works can
Yeah,
be restored, and you know,
yeah.
it's
And also there's beauty in imperfections.
yeah, totally, and like also, if you're going to buy a watercolor, it will over the years will
Yeah,
slightly fade. That is just how it
yeah.
is. Like most
I
people
agree.
know that, you're told that when you buy
Yeah,
the piece also. So
yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, as I said, I mean, everyone just has to do the art that is you were saying. You just have to keep doing it, and then there's
yeah.
workarounds. You know?
Yeah, I think we find as artists, I think we find this once you find that one thing that calls you so much that
Yeah.
no matter what someone says, you still want to go with it. I think that's the golden
Yeah.
light.
No, totally, totally.
Lovely. Oh my God, Ritika, I don't want to I want to take more of your time, but I don't want to take more of your time.
No,
But
you
it's
can.
been
It's fine.
so
Like if you have more, we can keep going for a little bit longer.
perfect. But then let's
Okay.
go. First, I want to go into your rapid fire, and
Hmm.
then we'll expand.
Okay.
Okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You have to be very quick.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
rapid fire is simple. You just have to give me away what comes to your mind first. There's no right, no wrong. It's just
Mhm.
you.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. One, two, three. Here we go. One thing you want to convey through your work in the arts.
God, I don't know. I guess just a way to like look at things differently.
Oh, wow. Doing differently also. You're doing so much.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that one word that describes you the best?
Hmm. Probably intense, I think.
Wow. I love
Yeah.
that.
For people
I
who know me
resonate with
well.
that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. If you could have a studio anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Hmm. God, that's a hard one. I mean, at this particular point, probably Mumbai, which is why I'm doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it more because of how your tangents with Mumbai, like India and work, but also is it because you truly want to be back in that creative zone of whatever
Yeah.
the city
I think it's
inspires you?
that. Like my parents are there. I like Bombay. I feel creative there, and I like it there. But to
Oh,
be very honest with you, where my studio is has never had much of a bearing on my work. I truly can work anywhere. I just need a table. So I don't have these like visions of having like some amazing studio somewhere. But I mean, to answer your question, probably Mumbai.
okay. When you're coming to Mumbai soon, na?
Hmm.
I'm,
I'm coming
I'm
on.
there. Then
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm coming
I
next
have
week.
I have to meet you. I have to meet you.
Yes.
Okay. Your biggest source of inspiration.
Probably esoteric female artists, like artists like Leonora Carrington and Remedios Vero. Yeah, those kinds of artists who were maybe not really recognized that much in their time, but tell these like amazing stories in their work and have like all of these amazing creatures and symbols. And I don't know, the work is just so highly symbolic and meaningful. Definitely artists like that.
Okay.
Hilma af Klint is another one.
Oh, love her work. Love her work. Okay. Who's your favorite woman artist and why? Any point of time.
Leonora Carrington and Hilma af Klint. We just
Why?
talked about this.
What really resonates with you?
The characters, especially in Leonora Carrington's work, like the characters that she creates, that's what resonates with me. Like each of them are their own. Like you can tell that each one has their own story, and even if you don't know what it is, like you can kind of tell the story. And each painting is like its own universe. It's so cool. Like it's like what I strive for in my own work. You can really just disappear into her work.
Yeah. And I think that's so much in your work. I think you have it. I mean, as a receiver, when I look at your work, no, absolutely.
That's amazing to me. I don't think I'll ever be at her level, but she is goals to me in every way.
You are Ritika's level. You're always Ritika. Okay. Your go-to person when you're in trouble or in need of advice.
Oh, my mom, for sure.
Okay. This could be a little longer than a one answer, but can you share? I'm sure that there must have been many, but can you share like one moment from your life as an artist where you felt truly grateful to be like living this creative life and being an artist?
I think it was actually during the pandemic where like so many people like really struggled with like the isolation and like suddenly everything being changed. But for a lot of artists, because we're so used to working by ourselves and being at home, obviously it was hard to see what was going on in the world during the pandemic, and like the world events were extremely disturbing. But like I think for a lot of artists, like myself included, I was really grateful that I was still able to do what I loved, without too much disruption, and like also to be able to process like what was going on in the world, to have that outlet to do that, So anytime something like really major happens, I guess, in the world, I always feel really grateful that I have this outlet to kind of process it and like think about it and come to terms with like what's going on,
Yeah, I think that's something that we all have learned so much with the pandemic, because before that, I think we didn't realize how impactful this creative outlet can be in times like these.
Yeah, and I remember like I didn't get to go to my show in India, Birth of the New World, because it was during the pandemic and you couldn't travel at the time. But I remember I got so many messages from people who were able to go to see the show, and the number one message I got, like the number one DM I got, was how hopeful it made them feel. And I was like, okay, well, all of like the kind of hopefulness or whatever I put into the work during this time, like not even consciously, I think I was just, I guess, trying to build a better world in my head in some way. But the fact that it kind of did resonate with people in the same way was really gratifying.
Yeah, that's so true.
It was amazing. Even though I wasn't really there.
But it's the immediate. I think the impact, no matter where you are, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people have also like realized. Like I sold most of my work, or like a lot of my work in between the pandemic. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of artists who come on the podcast have said the same thing. I
Yeah.
think primarily because people realized how empty their homes were. And like I
Yeah.
have experienced the work that I have, like whatever I have in my house, or I
Mhm.
still remember just early in the beginning of that year, I bought this painting from a very young artist here in India, and that was like a man. Coincidentally, it just happened. A man sitting at a railway station in India
Okay.
by himself,
Mhm.
and that work continuously, because what everything was happening and like the whole isolation and everything.
Mhm.
Every time I look at the work and the amount of interaction I felt, like
Mhm.
I could feel the difference, a presence of a work in your
Yeah.
life can make.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I mean, I can completely understand that. You know.
Yeah. I think art has a lot of. I think the good thing has been that people have recognized how much, like how much more than just visual aesthetics, and how art can actually speak to you, especially in times
Yeah.
like this.
No, and like art, like visual art and film and TV and
Music,
music, it got us through this
yes,
time, Like I think that's what
yes,
everyone was doing during this time. I mean, people started
yeah,
making art who don't even
making,
make art, which is
yeah,
amazing.
cooking.
Cooking,
Half
yeah,
of
just
the
like that.
world was cooking.
Hmm.
It was like this. I don't know. I mean, everyone was like, even in India, you would like people were making golgappas, jalebis, and like all
Yeah,
of this at
people,
home.
amazing, yeah. Wow. No, it is really amazing. People found the creative outlet because I think that's what they needed.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we were lucky
Shall
because we have it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, it wasn't a new for us. Like it's
No,
still that transition to this way of life was, I think, not as hard for artists as it was for us.
no, it wasn't.
My next question: if you were to meet younger Ritika today, what advice
Hmm.
would you give her?
Probably not to overthink things so much and to not stress. I'm always stressed out. Like I'm just one of those like quite anxious people, and I probably like tell younger me to
Really?
not. Yeah, I am actually. It's something I really have to work on. Actually, it's just my personality. I think I'm just quite an anxious, angsty person. But I probably tell myself to like relax more.
Okay. Um, Shout out to an artist you're currently loving on social media.
Oh my God, there's so many. I actually just found, what's her name? I just found someone and I'm obsessed with her work. I'm
Really?
looking her
Who?
up. Yeah, Lou Benesch, LouBenesch. And her
Um,
Instagram thing is UN_LUP.
okay.
And her work is just next level. Like
Really?
it says she's based in Paris and Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, has these like really like mystical creatures, and I think a lot of them are like watercolor or like crayon
If
on
you like it,
paper.
I'm sure I'll love it.
You
I'm
will
going to
love
check
it.
it out.
Please look it up.
Perfect.
Like you will be as obsessed as I am. So that's someone who I've really been loving.
I joined. Welcome to the Stalking Club.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like, I can't believe I didn't know about this artist before. Because a lot of people I know seem to follow her. Somehow she never came up on my radar. And then, like, now I found her. And then I also
Like a
love,
pleasure.
and then I also love Chioma Binama. She is a
Okay.
Nigerian American artist. I think she currently lives in Greece, but I could be wrong. But I love her work. Again, she works on paper with watercolor, and it's amazing.
You have a special spot for everyone who works on paper and watercolor.
I do. I do. I don't know.
Fair
I
enough.
love works on paper in general.
Same,
Yeah.
same. I tried so hard, like trying with all of that, and then when I moved to like embellishments along with work, I was like, I just have to give up. I love wash. I'm not going to
Mhm.
care.
Yeah.
Experiment, push myself on the edge. And ever since I've combined, like, I love wood for some reason. I love the tactileness of
Never
the
worked with wood.
stability of
That's so
wood,
interesting
and
that you love it so much.
I love it. And I just love how wash shows up on wood. I think
Yeah.
that I just because the intensity and the mattness of gouache and how like how calming tactile it is, and like
Yeah.
I just love how it feels like the
So do
surface,
you
how
do
organic it
you
feels.
prepare? Do you prep the wood? Like do you gesso or or do you just paint directly onto it? How do you
Mm.
prep the wood?
I prep the wood.
You prep the wood. Okay, interesting. I need to like look at your work in more detail.
So I use like an acrylic medium either, or like a gesso sometimes, but I just prep the panel sometimes that there's less of absorption. But honestly, you ask me, sometimes I also apply wash or something like watercolors. So there's this ingrained texture of wood that starts appearing. So I also really like that. Okay. My last question. What advice would you give to women artists, especially who are coming after you, like who look up to you and who are just beginning their careers, or just a general advice from where you are?
I would say, like, don't be afraid to ask for things in writing. Don't be afraid to ask for contracts, and don't work with anyone who makes you feel uncomfortable. Like, if the vibe is off, or like something feels weird, like, don't work with that person. And like, if people are like being sketchy about contracts, or people, I don't know, if it basically just, if it doesn't feel right, like, just pass on the opportunity, because it's just not worth what's going to come down the line. And like, don't be afraid to be
Yeah.
like assertive about asking for paperwork. And I don't even think that this is just women. I just think young artists in general are always afraid to
Not
like, to, I don't know, like, be assertive, ask for contract, ask for this, because you feel like, oh, I don't want to bother someone, or I don't want to like seem like I'm being really difficult to work with. But it's not, you're not bothering anyone, and it's not, you're not difficult. Like, it should be standard practice to have everything in writing, and to have all the terms of everything laid out, like when you're going to get paid, how long, say for example, the gallery is going to keep the work, who's paying for framing. Like, make sure you have everything in order, because that's the kind of stuff that like later on like could come back and bite you. So like, of course, I mean, the stuff about your practice goes without saying, devote yourself to your practice, do that all the time. But some of the real world logistical stuff is the stuff I think that like people need to pay a little bit more close attention to. And the other thing actually that I have to say is that art is definitely almost like a muscle that you have to exercise and that you have to like take care of. So do something almost every day if you can. Like, it you can't take, at least I don't think it's realistic to just do it whenever you feel like. Sometimes you have to make the art and you have to sit down, you have to do something even when you don't really feel like it, Obviously, if you got something major going on,
I think
like
that's a
sick
great
or something, you can't. But for the most part, if things are okay and there's no like extenuating circumstance, like actually just sitting down and like doing something.
I think that's such a lovely advice, because that's what a lot of times we underestimate. Especially I think when you're not, no matter what your age of career, or if you are like point of career you're in, but when something new comes your way, every time we always underestimate ourselves, like, because we feel like something new is happening, we don't know enough. But just putting your questions out there and standing up for yourself is just is very important.
Yeah, and I would say most people are willing to do that. Like, it's not like people are like, no, I'm not going to give you a contract, but like, you have to just make sure you have all your like ducks in a row, so that you're protecting yourself, because ultimately, like, you have to look out for your own interests when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because especially if you don't work with the gallery, oftentimes when you work with the gallery, they will help you. Like, contracts are like between galleries, for example. And then you have a level of protection that is afforded to you just by working with the gallery. But obviously, if you're not working with the gallery, you have to protect yourself. So it's really important to have all of that stuff in order.
Yes. Lovely. Oh my goodness. I don't know how we've got through this. The internet hasn't been very kind to us today.
It's not.
But
we managed.
We've managed. I was like, it was like how excited I was, and all throughout I have my fingers crossed. Like, I'm like, I just want to make sure we can get through and through this. But I'm so glad, Ritika. I can't even tell you. I'm just not. I was in love with your work, but today I'm even more like. I even more love who you are as a person, who you are as an artist. It's truly, truly my honor to have you. I mean, I've been I've been looking forward since forever to speak to you, know more about you, who you are, and I just feel like you're
Thank
so much more than you're so much like I imagine, but so much more than I
you.
imagine.
Thank you. No, it was such a pleasure to talk to you. This was such a fun conversation. Technical difficulties, it wasn't even that big of a deal. It was just really nice to sort of sit down. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I just think it's so nice also that you're shedding. Like, I wish I had had a podcast like this when I was like 10 years ago or like 15 years
You
ago.
can still have it.
No, I can still have it. But you know what I mean? Especially for younger
Yeah.
artists. Like,
Yeah.
It's really nice
Yeah,
to
it's
like
just fun.
hear about people's experiences and like them talk through it, you know. So I think it's really valuable what you're doing, and it's always nice to have another female voice, especially within the creative community. So
Thank you
for
so
including me
much.
in this. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you. And I am going to have you back again. I'm sure there are going to be
Anytime.
so many more things that you're going to do that I will have to bring you back, pull you back.
Well, anytime you want, I'm happy to have a chat with you. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. My last question is, what's happening right now? Are you working on something that you can share with us? Where can people who are following you right now, listening to you, where can they find your work? Where can they find you? How can they connect with you? How can they buy your work? Interested in getting like, how and where can we support you?
Okay, so I will be having a show in Paris in July. It's opening on the 2nd of July at Gallery LJ. So that is where one will be able to see my work in the flesh relatively soon. That's also what I'm working on at the moment. I also have few works available through tags, although I will admit I'm pretty much like there's just a few older works that remain in like most of the galleries. So that's waitlist. You can like if you are interested in purchasing a piece, you can get on a waitlist, and one of the galleries will let you know when they have new work. I'll also be showing some work at India Art Fair, which is in April.
Are you coming to India Art Fair?
I might be coming to India Art Fair. I haven't confirmed it yet. I'm going to try and come. I will try and come. It's definitely
I have to.
like I might just come for the day or something. I'm going to see, but I'm going to try and make it. So you may see.
I'm going to take it.
But my work, you will definitely see my works there if you go. So
I've seen your work handful of times there. Like last year also, I think I recorded your work and I shared it.
The last time I had a couple of pieces. This time I've got a bunch of embroidery hoops that I'm going to be showing at the fair. And Tarek has a really amazing booth, so it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to be included in it. So I'll be showing some work there, and then I have my show in Paris. I think that's it. I mean, you can follow me on Instagram, just at my name, Ritika Merchant. And I usually post most updates there. And that's about it.
Amazing. Okay, everyone who's listening, I highly recommend you check out everything Ritika has mentioned. I know I have a lot of listeners from Paris. I have a few friends already there. So I will link all Ritika's show details and I will take it somehow and we'll keep you updated on when and where the show is so that you can show up and support her.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I would have come in person if I could. But before that, we will keep sending the love.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
But I will, if you want to find out all these links, you can go to the website and the show notes. You'll find Ritika's work, images, the Chloe collaboration, everything we've spoken about, the artist she's mentioned, her website, Instagram, and everything else. So all of Ritika in one place, and the transcription of this episode and everything else important in the show notes. So you can find everything there. I just want to say a big thank you, Ritika. I can't even tell you how grateful I am we made this show. I am so excited for everything that you're going to do further. And believe me, you know this by now. I cheered and I will continue to cheer for you forever.
Thank you. And thank you for your support. I mean, every time actually I do see your comments sometimes, I'm always like, oh, like I always notice like when you like send messages and stuff. So I mean, I'm really grateful for your support of my work and also for having me on the show. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find all the details and links mentioned in the show notes of this episode available on www.arts2heartsproject.com. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to tag us in your stories and leave us a review here on iTunes or any of your favorite platforms. It really helps us to keep the show going. Thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of love and I can't wait to be back here soon again. Bye.